Hello and welcome to this Saturday's edition of All Things Spiritual on the new 950 WTLN. I'm Keith Allen for Nurse Renee. If you've been a friend of this ministry, you know that we talk about physical and healing from the spiritual perspective, and perhaps you're suffering from a certain addiction. And if you are, I believe today's broadcast is going to be a big encouragement and I believe an eye-opener for many of you. So stay tuned for today's All Things Spiritual. Well, Nurse, it's nice to be back in studio with you. Addictions is something that you know many people suffer from, and it comes in many different forms. So I'm going to let you tackle this one.
Yes, it does. This was one of the that I got the most phone calls about was addictions. In addition to cancer, addictions, it's a tough issue, but it's something that seems to be a human issue. Obviously, it's a very popular subject. I noticed that even there was a TV show that is called My Strange Addiction. And if you can imagine, if there's enough information for a TV show every week, an hour-long show, that this issue of addictions is not going to go away. And there are tons and tons of addictions. And it's just so amazing to me how the human body can become so easily addicted to something. And it's even more troubling when you find out what the reason is that people become addicted. I just want to ask you, Keith, name some addictions that you might be aware of.
Alcoholism, definitely is there. Pornography. I know there's a lot of OCD things where people, are can't step on a crack in the sidewalk, which seems unusual. They have to lock every lock in the house, every window. Right. It's just almost like an obsession. Addiction's definitely drug form. Tobacco, big use there. Chewing tobacco comes in many different forms there. Infidelities, where people seem like they just can't break that. I think that's a sexual addiction.
Sexual addiction.
Pornography would be under that same line there. And abuse, I think that would be an addiction where a person's very abusive, can't break that pattern. And I'm sure we could go on and on. That's the ones that come to my mind.
Well, that's very good. Now, we have some new ones that have come across us. Video games have become very addicting.
You're right.
Yeah, we have tattooing is an addiction.
The internet.
Yes, there you go. Body piercing. Hoarding is another addiction, and there's actually a TV program about
there is.
Hoard,
Breaks your heart.
Yes, and one of the ones that was really interesting to me is that there are people that are addicted to ice chewing. And matter of fact, I was reading Joyce Meyer said this was one of her addictions. She could not get away from chewing ice.
Chewing ice.
Chewing ice. There are people who are lying. They just can't seem to tell the truth.
Lying spirit.
Yes. Yeah. And there's also the addiction of people who do inhalants.
Oh, yes, in glue.
Right.
Glue huffing, gas huffing.
Right.
Inhalants, antiperspirant, getting high off that stuff.
It's just amazing to me. But, and people have died actually from their addictions. And there are bizarre stories where this 600-pound man died while he was eating, and there are people who have died playing video games, and they have actually killed as a result of playing a video game. We have people who have gone plastic surgery wild because they cannot stay away from the surgeon's knife. We have gamblers who have lost everything.
Well, we just lost a pop icon. Remember Whitney Houston, so talented.
Absolutely.
And we lost her she just could not break, no matter what happened, how many years went by. She made the announcement in her past album that she was off it, and she really wasn't.
And that's the story of a lot of addicts. We have shopaholics who can't seem to stay out of the store and go into debt so far that they have to give up their homes or, they're just so much in debt that they'll never see their ways up. The main thing, the most surprising thing when you go to study addictions is it is a spiritual root behind it. All addictions, no matter what they are caused by the need to be loved. All addictions, regardless of what they are caused by a lack of self-esteem and insecurity.
So they don't feel loved.
The major issue, without exception, is the need to be loved.
Interesting.
It's
Or they
very
don't allow themselves to be loved.
well, there are many reasons for that. There are reasons why they can't receive love, and there are reasons why they can't give love.
Mm.
But the whole issue, the spiritual root behind it is they need to be loved. And one of the things I wanted to share with you about inhalants that really was upsetting to me was most people who are doing the inhalants now are eighth graders.
Is that right?
They're eighth graders, and out of that, only 22% of these eighth graders that use it, they die the first time they use it.
Oh,
So there's a real tragedy in this whole thing of addictions, and it is haunting down people and eventually taking over their lives. And it really is the ultimate aim of the human soul. It is the destruction of a human soul. And the Bible tells us that the lion goes around, who's really the enemy, seeking whom he can destroy.
that's his mission.
That's his mission. And using addictions to destroy us has worked very well for him over the span of time. You have to understand that the enemy has studied your body and he knows how to chemically manipulate your body. And the thing with addictions is you have slowly been depleted of serotonin and dopamine. And it's the serotonin and dopamine in the body that you are striving to replace, because dopamine and serotonin are the neurotransmitters that God has given us to help us to feel good and to keep us in homeostasis, which is complete and perfect balance. It is God's pleasure hormones. And what we do with our addictions is we're trying to elevate the levels of serotonin and dopamine in our bodies. But the problem is, even when you do your addiction of choice, you are only able to elevate your serotonin level for a very short time. The reason I feel so sorry for cocaine addicts is because the cocaine addict is after that dopamine rush. But what they don't understand is the first time you use cocaine, you will get the largest rush of dopamine that you will ever get in your body ever again. Your body will never be able to produce that amount of dopamine ever again.
So the addict actually remembers that experience and trying to top that experience, but never can.
Absolutely. And that's why they are such tormented people. Now
Amazing.
that is why addicts are so tormented, because they keep trying to elevate their levels of dopamine and serotonin. And the only one that can really do that for you and keep you in homeostasis is the Lord.
Well, nurse, you've spent 36 years in hospitals as a registered nurse, and you've seen people come in with these addictions, and many of them. What breaks your heart the most? What comes to mind right now when you think of an individual or family that had to suffer as a result of a particular addiction?
Well, all the years that I worked in the emergency room, I think that was one of the things that was most sorrowful, was to see mostly teenagers that I saw that would come in addicted to these inhalants or addicted to various drugs that were out on the street.
Now, what is an inhalant for maybe a listener that doesn't exactly know what you're talking about?
Well, it's anything that has an aerosol type of preparation to it.
Are they spraying that in their mouths?
Well, they spray it usually in their nose.
In their nose?
Yes, they spray it up their nose, and they totally destroy the navel cavity. They totally destroy it. It's sort of like cocaine will totally destroy your nasal passages.
Now, doesn't that go right to the brain?
It goes straight to the brain, and that's why they get such a high. That's why you get such a rush. That's why they get these laughing habits that they can't, get rid of. It is a rush. And you get a temporary high for a very short period of time.
I'd wonder how many brain cells in terms of doing that you destroy.
Well, that's the reason why most of them eventually end up, either killing themselves or put themselves into a treatment place, because they cannot, on their own, stop, because they just don't anymore have the what you want to say, the knowledge to do it, or the common sense to know that this thing is going to kill them.
Nurse,
They
is
just don't
this
know it.
this sort of thing on the rise?
Oh, it definitely is on the rise. That's why I found it very interesting that addictions was one of the subjects that came up after Pastor Henry Wright came, that I got the most phone calls about. But another addiction, Keith, that we haven't talked about is this anorexia and bulimia. I was astounded at the numbers of women that are suffering from anorexia and bulimia, and to find out that anorexia is the number one psychiatric killer. It kills more people than suicide
Oh
does.
my, I did not know that.
Yes, the number one psychiatric disease that produces death in America is anorexia. And I never thought it would outdo suicide. It's just amazing that so many of us have an issue with our body. And the weight issue is such a huge issue. There, you know how many diets there are out in the world.
Oh,
And
oodles and oodles.
yes, but the whole thing with a diet is the reason that most people put their weight back on 5 years after dieting is because the original issue was never dealt with.
Mm.
The issue, the lack of self-esteem, the issue of self-rejection, the issue of self-denial, those things were never dealt with. So the spirit goes into hiding. You may diet for a while and it will let you lose the weight that you need to lose. But eventually, if you don't deal with the root cause,
It's going to come right on back.
the emotion that is causing you to do that, you will find yourself with the weight right back on you.
Now, you mentioned lying. Now, just curious,
Hmm.
what does that cause for a person that lies and chronically does it, and they don't even know why they're doing it? It just seems like they know no other way to do that. Have you ever run into somebody, they couldn't tell the truth if their life depended on it?
That's so true. There are actually three types of lying addictions. There's a pathological liar. There's a compulsive liar.
Chronological.
And there's the chronic liar.
Yeah.
The sad thing about that is it destroys their personal relationships.
Mm.
These are individuals that are not able to have deep, rich interpersonal relationships. And that's the tragedy of it. Eventually, you're always found out in your lie. And a lot of them end up in jail. A lot of them end up being caught in schemes of gambling and other addictions because they're pathological liars and they're so good at it, they convince even themselves that they are telling the truth.
Well, the devil is the father of lies, and he is definitely, and he's telling these lies to individuals. And you know, it's amazing listening to you, Nurse, today, that really gathered from what you've said, that the devil really is using the human body to destroy in any way that he can, and by all these different ailments and things that, you know, as the body of Christ, we're really supposed to submit to Christ when we come to him as Christians and give him all these different things. Submit our bodies as a living sacrifice, as the Apostle Paul put. But so many of us reluctantly, we want to follow him, but we hang on to so many of these things, and we really don't let go and let God. And it's a difficult thing for God, I think, to really have full control over us when we say, we really want you to be our Lord and Savior, but it's not an easy thing.
Mhm.
You know, and Jesus even said it, you got to count the cost before becoming one of my disciples. He didn't say Christianity was going to be an easy thing.
No, it isn't easy to be a Christian on your own. You can only be a Christian with the power of God inside of you. We as humans cannot follow the laws of Christ without Christ in us, the hope of glory. And that's the whole thing. Christ is in you. And what I have found with most Christians and most people in the hospitals, we have forgotten that Christ in us is our only hope of glory. And when I
Amen.
see people that are sick and dying, the one thing that they come to the realization is that they may not have lived their life the way that they really wanted to because they allowed the enemy to take over and live his life through them. But that's the purpose of all things spiritual. It is to bring you the knowledge of the truth, to let you see and know that the emotions and feelings and thoughts that you have are often dictating what happens in your body and causing you to be at dis-ease. But if we don't talk about these things, we will never know that this is the thing that is causing us illness. We have got to come into the knowledge of the truth and deal with our emotions and our feelings in a way that is honoring to us and to the glory that God has given inside of you. You have something so precious that the enemy is even willing to spend so much time to destroy your life, that you must know that you are fearfully and wonderfully made, that there is something so special about you. Why is the enemy after you like he is? Because he's jealous, he is wicked, he is evil. And if he can keep you from knowing that what you think and feel is what is really destroying you internally and causing you to have disease, he has won the battle. But you know what? I say no more. That has got to stop. As people of God, we have got to rise up and take control of our bodies, our minds, our souls, and our spirit, and put them back into the hand of the Maker, Jesus Christ, the King of Kings and Lord of Lords, who is more able, who is willing and able, and just waiting for you to acknowledge and to come out of agreement with the enemy with what he is doing in your life. Come out of agreement with the thoughts and the ideas and the feelings that there is something wrong with you. In America, for some whatever reason, it has been proven that we are people who do not like ourselves. For whatever reason, we have bought the lie that someone else is better than us. Something else is better than us, and there's something wrong with us. There's nothing wrong with you. If God decided to make you just the way he decided to make you, you don't need plastic surgery to make you perfect. You are already perfect in the eyes of God. And who else eyes does it matter? He created you. Who else has the right to recreate you? And the enemy is using your brain waves and your thoughts to make you think that you are thinking these things about yourself, and you are not. You are perfectly innocent. And he is using your thoughts and your brain waves to get into your life and to destroy your life and to have you think that you're the one who thinks that you're not good enough for whatever.
Well, the Bible tells us to cast down, imaginations and thoughts that are not of God and quickly put that under the blood of Christ. And we have to be very, very careful on what we allow in and to stay in and permeate into our thoughts. And, I've said this before, and maybe folks, you've heard this, that thoughts are things, but they quickly can become things, and it can become rather dangerous. Nurse, you've really touched on an amazing subject today. And as we're winding down to the end of the program, we do have some resources online. Why don't you tell some of our listeners what they might find on atsradio.com?
Well, I have listed there my 5 favorite books, and each of them is very dynamic because I know that a half an hour radio show isn't going to give you everything that you need. But the first book I would really recommend that you get is A More Excellent Way, the book that Pastor Henry Wright wrote. It's an excellent book. There's also the book there on deadly emotions. And I also have a CD on there I listened to by Rabbi Messer that's on bitterness. And Joyce Meyer's book is on there, recommended to you, about, how to control your mouth and keep your mouth from saying things that are destroying you. But there's also, we're hooked up to Pastor Henry Wright's website,
Yes.
and he has a library of books and tapes that you can get hold of. And also, he's going to actually be in the Orlando area here giving a seminar on what he calls For Your Life.
Well, sign me up.
Yeah. I've been to one of his seminars on For Your Life, and I tell you, there's just nothing more wonderful you can do for yourself than to spend that 3 or 4 days just dwelling on yourself and what maybe your issues are. So I highly would recommend that you go ahead and contact his website and go through it and see what seminar might be right for you.
Now, when is he coming? Do you know?
Oh, it's in the end of April. I thought I had the exact date here.
Well, we'll put it on our website so
Okay.
our listeners can go to atsradio.com and be able to find out when Dr. Henry Wright will be in Orlando. But I would like to be there, and I know you're going to be there. We definitely invite you to be there most of all. And if you're listening to the broadcast and you're saying, this is really profound, this is absolutely amazing, well, that's why ATS Radio is on the air. All Things Spiritual believes that you should be in the truth, and the truth indeed will set you free. And we pray that more pastors would get involved with the ministry and start getting a hold of some of these resources to share with your flock. It's so important that people be in the truth so they know what's going on, and you're not scratching your head saying, well, why are these things happening to me? And how can I help my friends and my family? And I think that's really what everybody would like to do, and that's definitely the intent, I know, of Nurse Renee. Nurse?
And you absolutely. And, the thing about addicts when you study them is they really are the ones that have a deep yearning for God. They have a deep human, deep-seated needing for spiritual contact with God. And they just can't do without it, so they do everything they can to fill in the void. They just have a yearning for God. They're just lovesick for Him. But they don't know that what they're searching for really is the hand of God. And I did want to leave you with some quick tips on how you can just increase your serotonin and your dopamine levels on just cost you absolutely nothing to do these things.
Beautiful. Share that. That would be great.
Well, I just found out, and I did know this, but I want to share it with you, that taking a hot shower, how many out there of you just love to take hot showers?
Man, I just got a workout, and let me tell you, I love taking that hot shower. I don't know what's better, the hot shower or the workout.
Well, I can tell you a hot shower actually increases your serotonin levels.
Wow, I did
Yes,
not know
it
that.
does. And then also body massaging, it increases your serotonin levels as much as 28%.
My goodness.
And it decreases cortisol, which we talked about in the other program, by 31%.
My left shoulder, right here, that would be great.
Yeah, when you get home, have your wife work on that, and it's really going to decrease your cortisol and also increase your serotonin level. And one thing I found out that I thought was so cute, oxytocin is something that we don't talk about, but it is the cuddle hormone. And it is actually released when we love and trust people and when we hug people.
Oh.
So you can even increase your serotonin level by hugging another person, saying something wonderful to another person, loving on another person. And it is actually, they say oxytocin actually is more powerful than serotonin, but we don't talk about it.
Oxytocin. Well, all these things.
Yes, not oxycodone.
No.
Because that would be a real mistake to me. But
Nurse,
oxytocin.
Here goes another half hour. And Nurse, again, thanks for sharing your heart. And if you'd like to learn more about Nurse Renee, you can go to atsradio.com and learn more about this life-changing ministry called All Things Spiritual on the new 950 WTLN, and be praying for our international broadcast to be announced quickly. We are going to be broadcasting to 120 countries and around the world. You can visit us on WTLN's website at WTLN.com. You can find today's broadcast as well as previous broadcasts. Please pray for our ministry, and if you'd like to become a supporter to keep this life-changing ministry on the air, it is only by your donations that we're able to get this message out every single Saturday on the station. Please pray about it. Ask God what you can do. Go to our website right now at ATS Radio. And Nurse, we'll see you next weekend. We'll be praying for you. And like I said, that information about Dr. Henry Wright's seminar will be on the website real shortly as well, right?
It certainly will. I'll be praying for you, and I look forward to seeing you next Saturday.
I'm Keith Allen for Nurse Renee. Until next time, may God's best be yours.